Hey guys, welcome back to Warren C Street Photography. We are plugging along with the episode so I can keep you guys going, keep you engaged about anything and everything around street photography as we discuss it on this podcast. Again, this podcast is searchable on YouTube, on my YouTube channel, Warren C. I'm also on Spotify. I'm on Apple Podcasts. I'm also, I believe, on Google, as well as I'm not sure about Android or it's a Google Play. I think I am, but I'll have it again in the comments. All the different avenues that you can go after my podcast, and if you do a search for Warren C Street Photography Podcast, hopefully you'll find me and be able to listen to me on those outlets as well. And for those of you who aren't looking at the YouTube video, you can definitely hit me with comments on my Instagram, WarrenC01. And then, of course, for those who follow my YouTube channel, you can hit me on comments for this video or this podcast episode that will be posted on my channel. So, just like before, when it comes to the Street Photography Podcast, we talk about everything and anything around street photography, but we do go through specific categories or topics that I will discuss my views, my opinions on, my negatives and positives that I see of it, and also look for you guys to share in the comments. We generally will start off with a trend, whether that trend is, I feel, is trend worthy or not, or should be a trend, discuss it. And again, look for you guys' thoughts in the comments and feedback and so forth. We will then go to your Who You're Reppin' session, where I like to basically feature a street photography artist, local to me or you or not, talk about their street photography style, and give them a little shine, and then also discuss mainly how I feel their photography will help, or their style of photography, I should say, will help enhance my style of photography and make me get closer and closer to that style of photography that I'm continually growing, that we all continue to grow in as we build on our art of street photography. We will then go from there to talking about gear, anything and everything around gear, generally something that I wanted to discuss with the community and get you guys' feedback on and get your minds thinking about. And then we will finish up with a Q&A. So with that, we are going to go ahead and get right into this. And we're going to talk about the first category, topic, subject of the podcast, which is the trend. So one of the things that I often think about when it comes to learning things is it is good to follow the rules. It is good to see what the trends are out there for the sake of this topic itself. What are the trends? And what can you learn from those trends, rules, and so forth to help you develop your craft of photography, in this case, street photography. Rules are there in essence to help guide you, right? And in street photography, we have a number of rules out there that helps to guide you. You have the golden rule, which is the aspect ratio rule. You have the rule of 4/3, which is another aspect ratio rule. You know, fill the frame and all of these different things. When it comes to trends, you have a lot of different trends out there helping you to basically become a better photographer for the style of photography that you shoot. But there are times when I think everybody should look at being unique in the sense of not following the trends and breaking the rules of photography. Because as we all know, photography is an art form, and there are no rules when it comes down to it, how you create your art. You can, of course, use some of those rules out there for photography and follow some of those trends out there enough to get you going. But how many of you out there actually look to not follow the trends, to be unique in your style? And what I mean by that, examples of that is, let's just talk about one rule, the rule of thirds. You know, the rule of thirds is a rule that helps you set up a scene to have your subject off center. You know, doesn't necessarily say that the person has to be in the bottom third or the bottom left third or top left third or dead center in the middle top third. It does say it's just a way of using a grid that you have hopefully on your camera, or you can visualize, right? Think of 9 boxes, you know, in essence it's the tic-tac-toe grid, and place your subject off center and try to give your composition a more interesting story to tell. How do you break that rule? Of course, not using it, and maybe shooting mostly in the center, but how do you use that to be unique? So how do any of the listeners to the podcast, people in the community that are associated with this, or folks who are listening to this the first time, how do you not follow the trends? How do you be unique? Do you see your uniqueness in not following the rules? Do you see your uniqueness in not following the trends? Like, one of the big trends out there, of course, is, you know, chasing the light, the sun, you know, going out and seeing how you can follow the sun and take advantage of light and shadows. Maybe you don't want to do that. Maybe your uniqueness is in being able to capture images in low light, you know, very compelling images. Maybe you don't want to image that's sharp. Maybe you want an image that's soft. Maybe you want to take a perfectly nice, well exposed image and make it a perfectly nice, well underexposed image, to define your unique style. So when it comes to me and thinking about how good this can be, you know, there are benefits to it. It's and a lot of it is developmental, right? It's nice to know what the rules are, but it's nice to know what happens when you don't follow them, to see what the outcome is, and again, to see how you can incorporate that into your style. I often will not follow the rule of thirds. I don't even use the golden rule. I don't want to use the golden rule. I don't want to have an aspect that is widely used by a lot of folks. I want to explore the ability to place a subject in whatever position I want in the frame to achieve the goal I want. And if that means having them in the center of the frame and never having a subject off center, then I won't use the rule of thirds to do that. If it means I don't want to fill the frame with the subject because I want more of the environment, but I want people to know that the subject is a subject, maybe it means I'm looking for subjects that really stand out, and no matter how they are positioned in the frame, as far as not being the full aspect of the frame, filling the frame with them, but you still can tell because that subject is so flamboyant that they're the subject, right? Whether that's a brightly colored building or fire hydrant, or a person in a bright colored outfit, to a scene where I have a building that's so unique that it stands out, that it doesn't matter how small in the frame that building is, it catches the attention of the viewer. So again, guys, how unique are you in the fact that your uniqueness involves not following the trend, not following the rules of photography, in essence, not jumping on the bandwagon? So let me know in the comments. Let me know. I'd really like to know on that one what you guys think about this particular trend, if you will, and get your feedback. So with that, let's go ahead and go into the who you reppin' section. So this one was an interesting one for me, only because it was a chance discovery, if you will. I think that's the best word for this. So in my perusing of street photography books, artists, and so forth, looking to get a book of an artist that I wanted to finally have, Gordon Parks was one. You know, I went on it and Amazon, and as I looked through the selections of books that Amazon has, Amazon does what Amazon does and sends you recommendations, just like other sell type sites. They will always throw recommendations in to get, of course, more sales. And looking at Gordon Parks' book I was looking at, it of course had a recommendation for another artist that it felt would be in the same, I guess, genre, same style of photography, arena of Gordon Parks, and so forth. And then you gotta love Amazon and online stores like that. They'll actually throw suggestions to you based on what other people purchased that also purchased the book. And I gotta give them points on using their information like that to help generate sales. You can't knock that. Just don't sell my info, right? I happened upon Mr. Ken West. So who we repping? We're repping Mr. Ken West out of Nashville, Tennessee. Now, as I did my research on him, I got the book immediately because I was able to see a few pages, I think it was, or I just took a chance because of the cover of the book I got. But I ordered the book immediately before I even really found out any more about Mr. Ken West, because I was just that enamored with what I saw just on the cover of the book. So that tells you how much I enjoyed the book once I got it. But as I read my notes here, Mr. West is I believe he was raised in Nashville, Tennessee. Hopefully I'm getting this right. He has a studio in Atlanta, and that might be where he is now. Sometimes finding information out on artists, especially artists that are growing in their craft and popularity, like Mr. West, you don't get as much information you want. But I was able to go to his site, which I'll definitely put in the comments, and I was able to go to his Instagram, which I put in the comments, and I actually follow him as well. And I came across his book, but let me go through kind of his philosophy and the philosophy on the book itself. So in these days and times, a part of staying sane and well-adjusted involves appreciating every moment, especially the simple things. And I thought, man, that's a powerful statement. I mean, if you think about our last episode and when I talked about Sean Tucker and his philosophy and how he looked for the why. This statement from Ken West gives you his why. It gives you the why and him going out and getting the images that he captures and why he brought those images together in the book. So the book in question is this guy right here. This is The Beauty of Everyday Things. Excuse me, let me say that right. The Beauty of Everyday Things. Documentary portraits of mindfulness and Black revolutionary normalcy. And it's by Ken West. And here is that book right there. Hopefully that's focusing. And the cool part about the book when I got it was, this book cover itself is a jewel, right? And here's why I say that, because when you open the book, you see, in essence, like looking through a mirror, the other side of that. So you go from looking at the young lady with the ice cream and eating it with the New York hat and so forth, to the lettering on the book being backwards, as if you're looking at it through a mirror or something. I thought that was really cool. And that really got me excited as I went through this book. Now, I'll tell you, a lot of this book has to do with portraits, which again, you guys know I go after generally portraits on the street as one of the 3 genres that I like to go after when I do my street photography. So I'm instantly gravitated to a book that has street photos in it of people. And Mr. West used color and black and white in the book to tell the story, of what's going on with the individual at the time. Now, the book itself and the philosophy itself behind the book, it's at the core of the creative thrust behind West's book is the ancient philosophy of wabi sabi, the belief that there is perfection to be found in imperfection. And I can honestly say, going through the book, that's what you have. But what I see in the book is a lot of life and through the eyes of the individuals that he captured. The images are phenomenal. I can see emotion, whether it's black or white photo or whether it's color photo. This little image right here, and you guys know I don't show too many images from the book because I'd rather you guys get the book. So there you go. Showing how that little girl looks, or is looking, and the emotion in her face as she's looking at the adult in front of her. The emotions of the individuals as if he wasn't even there. I mean, he literally was, it's like taking candid shots. I assume he asked for portraits as well, but he took candid shots as well. A lot of the images he took were in the city, or at least city areas, it looks like, and of Black people going through their life, daily activities, and he took images of everything in front of him, the raw images in front of him, whether that is people that are enjoying themselves or people who weren't quite enjoying life at the moment. You know, and I don't generally, again, as you guys know from my ethics, I don't generally shoot images of people in distress and so forth. But he definitely shot some raw images in this book. I love his use of black and white, but even this image right here, it shows the despair in a way in that person's face, the eyes. It is phenomenal. I was overjoyed at the captures of his book. This was a jewel for me. This was one of those surprises that, okay, we'll see what this is. And when the book came and I saw the cover, that first got me. And then when I saw the images, I was just like, oh my gosh, this is a jewel. I want to rep Mr. Ken West because I think this book is phenomenal, and I think he deserves whatever pub he can get, because I want to see more work out of Mr. West. I mean, look at this image. Look how he's captured whatever the emotion is in this person in this image, and the detail and the non-detail. I mean, when I look at this image, the guy's got the cigar in his mouth and everything. This image isn't super sharp. I don't think it needs to be super sharp to tell the story it's telling, showing the person deep in thought, thinking about life's decisions, whatever that might be, right? And not all the images in here are super sharp, which I wanted to tell you guys, is that you need to tell the story. The story doesn't necessarily mean I need to see every pore on a person's face, unless that's part of the story. He took wonderful images in this, I think this 13-year project, culmination of about 200 plus images in this book. And so, I mean, for me, that's like a life career story of his work and how he captured the life of African-American folks going through their daily activities in the neighborhoods they grew up in a number of cities. He wasn't just specific to New York or Atlanta or wherever. He hit a number of areas. But the book is phenomenal. I highly recommend this book. I highly recommend you guys check out his website, check out his Instagram. His Instagram is full of wonderful images, portraits of people showing that same emotion. And again, I would love to see him come out with another book project similar to this, whether it's specifically of images of he's taken on the street, which mostly, if not majority of these are to begin with, which is why it popped up when I was looking at Gordon Parks on Amazon. And but in this book, there are no words. There's just the images to tell you the story of what's happening at the moment. I don't know if words were required, honestly. I think words would have been unnecessary noise for this book and the stories that you imagine is going on with the subjects, especially with the looks, with the environment that they're in, with the actions that they're doing at the time. This is fantastic. As you guys can tell just from the way I'm talking about this, how much of an effect this book has had and is having on me, even going through it again. I've gone through this book a few times to look through the images and see how he captured his images, his use of light, his use of shadow, his use of color versus black and white. I also happen to get a postcard in here of one of his images that you can actually buy a print of on one of the two websites that I have in the description. And it's funny too, because when I look at this image, and this is one of his most notable images that he has on his site, this is true today. You know, it's funny. I think about the politicalness of this image. Not to say it's a political image, but it is in a lot of context, depending on what you're going through right now, especially if you're a man of color. I'm not just going to say black, a man of color, as well as a black man in the United States, even at this moment. And the fact that, you know, we do cry, we do have emotions. We may not show them the same way as other races or even the female side of our race. But black men do cry. So I look at all of that emotion and I go, okay, how do I show that in my images? And I try to, of course, capture the moment, which is what he's doing here. And I try to see if I can show the images, showing that. But where I give him points, and something I looked at my past images and I don't do very well, or at least I don't do as much as I used to, is I don't really get that close to people. I'm close. I'm about 3 foot close. I try not to engage as much as possible. When you look at the crazy assortment of images on my Instagram, when I do have images of people, I'm not really up on them in their face taking images. This book, these folks knew that Ken West was taking their image. In a lot of cases, I find it phenomenal that they did not react to him taking their images. It still looked like he was still taking a candid shot, even though the person knew they were being photographed. And I think that's phenomenal. And that's a hard feat in a lot of cases, because he is in a way being a little intrusive, if not a lot intrusive, in some of these photos. And you know, I would love to be able to find out from him if he actually, how many of those pictures in this book where he actually asked for the photo but wanted them to still be doing what they were doing and act natural and doing what they were doing. But he has somewhere there, literally like the cover of this book, or looking at him and he's taking the picture. So I see obtrusive, asking for photos happening here, you know, of the two genres of street photography. I love his use of color, and again, of his use of black and white. And I try to do that myself in my own photography, is try to see if an image is better told in black and white or color, not just to take it as it is and keep it going. Sometimes you do want to see if you can tell a better story, depending on whether it is black or white or color. So I try to do that. But based on the outcome of his images, I will have to challenge myself to try to get closer, and to the point where I'm intrusive and be able to take an image. One of the fellows that I will sometimes catch up with, Barry, and he's on Instagram. He's a retired guy, and he does a lot more street photography than I do. But Barry is, I think, more like Ken West, and he will go right up to a person and take a picture and compliment them on the look or whatever it is that drew his attention. Sometimes he will talk about whatever it is that drew his attention, and to get that picture while they're talking to him, so he can capture them in the moment of the discussion that he's having with them. And I can honestly say I've never seen a negative reaction. But on my side of it, that's just not my style at the moment. I love his outcome of his images as well, and I do want to get to that point. So as much street photography as I do, even of people, I generally don't interrupt them to that point. So that's something I'm gonna have to look at doing, because I, again, thoroughly enjoy the results of his photography, the effort that he put in, his eye. He has a wonderful eye, and he has a wonderful way of capturing an image to tell a story, especially with people, which is generally what I do, take images of people. So that's who we repping. You guys let me know. I'd say grab the book. I want to say it was, I think, $30 on Amazon, and it was a wonderful surprise. So if you want to see what Mr. Ken West's work is like, definitely hit his website, hit his Instagram, and if you want to go further and purchase his book to support him, go for it. I don't think you will be disappointed at all. So that's who we repping in Nashville, or out of Nashville, Mr. Ken West. So when it comes to gear, our next category, you know, I was replying to some comments over the past couple of weeks. I myself have been traveling a lot in the first half of the month, some personal, some work related. And one of the wonderful places I happened to travel to was Montreal. It was my first time there. It was a hell of an experience, and it was definitely positive. And I would absolutely go back again. But it got me thinking about this particular topic I want to go over with you guys because of the travel and because of some of the comments I got. And when it comes to my travel setup, like most of us, we have gear. Here's my camera right here. Right now on my XH2S that I'm filming my talking head on, I have the 18 to 120 power zoom. It pretty much stays parked there. Now I will admit, a year ago, this particular lens I traveled with a lot, right? But then my gear changes over time, right? Depending on what it is I'm trying to do, my gear changes. So, but what I notice about my gear is I generally will have a zoom lens with me. And that's from my own experience going out and doing photography. I find, and this is what I want to know, if you guys, how do you feel? What are your thoughts on it? Do you prefer zoom over prime when you travel? So I can see how a person could go either way. Honestly, there are benefits to both. But one of the biggest things I've learned from going to Florida last year and hitting Orlando area and walking around with a bunch of gear, there's a simplicity to being able to have something like, say, a Fuji XS20, which is APS-C. I mean, this camera is tiny, right? In some respects, depending on what you generally shoot with. But this camera is a pretty small camera. It's got an APS-C side sensor in it, which is very good, 26 megapixels, which is excellent. I've done some paid work with this, pro if you want to say, and a lot of personal work with this, non-paid. And it's a phenomenal little camera for what it does. It has a lot of features in it, from video to stills. Paired with the right lens, though, for the right situation, it's a powerhouse. And that can be said for any camera. But when it comes to travel, I've gotten to the point, especially with this recent visit, where I had the X100 with me, and I was shooting with that, and I did not take any zooms with me. It felt awkward. I love the benefit of a zoom, the range that it can cover. And if you have something like an APS-C type of camera like I do here with the Fuji, it's a small setup. There's not a weight concern, right? Now there can be, especially if I decided to use the 18 to 120, which is twice the size of this lens right here. If I take this lens off the body, for those that are watching the YouTube video, this is how big this is. If I was using 18 to 20, it's bigger, but it gives me more reach. This is an 18 to 55 versus the 18 to 120. When I go ahead and do the APS-C conversion, if I have to do that, this thing is pretty much a 27 mil to about 80, where the 18 to 120 is a 27 to about 180. So I go from 27 to 180 on that bad boy versus a 27 to 80 on this. So that's 100 more meters, which is phenomenal. Zooms can cover a lot of focal lengths that you don't get when you're dealing with a prime. And it makes it, especially when you're dealing with something like this, a small, manageable, lightweight kit to deal with. Now, if I was doing full frame and say I had the ZF with me, that's full frame, bigger lenses because of the mount's bigger, the zooms are bigger, you have a weight issue. And in that situation, I would absolutely use a prime. But there could be opportunities, again, to use a zoom with that and understand the weight difference, but get the benefits of having multiple focal lengths and one setup that I can just walk around the area I'm at traveling and capture a lot of images without ever having to change the lens on the camera. So that's like the biggest benefit, especially again if you're dealing with APS-C. Do you guys prefer zoom when traveling on your camera and your kit to keep the kit small? Or do you guys prefer prime, or do you do a mixture of both? At one point when I first started this so many years ago, I did a mixture of both because one, I didn't have a lot of gear at the time. So, I had the classic 35 to 50 mil equivalents, and then I had the classic standard zoom, and that's what I took everywhere because that's all I had. So that kit wasn't that big. But now, having different camera brands and gear for both, I have to look at it, and I honestly can say that when it comes to travel, I actually prefer a kit like this, or, which I discovered with my X100V, a kit that will give me the ability to get multiple focal lengths without having to change a lens or have a lot of gear with me, because I don't want to have to deal with somebody taking my gear, right? So with the X100V, I was able to use the telezoom. Now, as you guys just heard me say with Ken West, and the artists who were repping, people always worry about megapixels and image quality and stuff like that. But in street, the image is the image. And I know when I use the telezoom on a camera like the X100V or digital zoom, excuse me, I said telezoom, digital zoom. On cameras, you lose megapixels. We know that. But that doesn't mean that the quality of the image isn't there, or the result you were looking for the image isn't there. And when it comes to street, not all images need to be super sharp. So having something like the X100V and using a digital zoom was perfect. If I had to bring anything in addition with me, it would be the conversion lenses, which aren't that much of a weight add and can all fit in a nice little bag while I was walking around. And for those watching this on a video, this was my little bag. This is the Ona, and I'll put it in the comments somewhere, or put it in the description, the type of bag this is. I think it's Bowery, or maybe, I'm not sure. But I got this bag so I can keep things tight and small. And I know it's leather, first leather bag I've ever gotten, and I can honestly say I actually like it. I like the comfortableness of the leather and so forth, but I got this bag to keep my gear small, because it's easy for us to just overstuff a bag. And bags can be also very personable, right? You have to figure out, again, like with the camera gear, what's the right bag to bring. And I think it starts with the bag and helping you understand what you're trying to do and stay focused. And when it comes to the gear, in travel, I find that a zoom lens for me has become a go-to over primes, or the ability to zoom if I don't have a kit where I'm using interchangeable body and lens setup like with the X100V. But there are some negatives to it though, and honestly for me the negatives come into play depending on the lens that you use. So when I say this setup is great, right, but I don't quite have the full reach that I might get if I was using an 18 to 120 power zoom, or if I was using the 70 to 300 zoom I have for the Fuji kit. Well, that lens though it's got some length to it, and for the folks that are traveling, it's going to draw some attention, especially if you're in an environment where there's a lot of people and you're taking images and you have this camera with this big lens on it. Yeah, it's a zoom and it's giving you what you want, but especially when you're in different areas like I was in a different country, it is good to know what the laws are and what you can and cannot do and where you can do them, so you feel at least more comfortable in taking images you're taking, because you know what the legal rules are in doing so. But it doesn't stop the fact that, hey, the bigger the zoom lens, the more weight it's going to add, and then it becomes a question of there's a weight issue now, where with primes, depending on the prime you have, you're not going to deal with the weight. The other thing that you have to also consider, that we all know, right, when it comes to shooting, is the f-stop. Now, most of the time when you travel, hopefully your weather is good and you don't have to worry about, a zoom lens's f-stop, which tends to be a little slower, or a lot slower, depending on the size of that mug, meaning its focal length, than primes. Prime, you can go to f1 dot something in a lot of cases, but you're going to have a nice chunky prime with all that glass in it. That's going to have a weight issue, but it's going to let in a lot of light and allow you to be able to do things like low light photography in the areas you're in, right, when you're traveling. Where with a zoom, as you start to get to those faster f-stops, which we are starting to see now. You know, I have the 35 to 150 Tamron for my Nikon, and that thing is an f2 to 2.2. That it's heavy. It's huge and it's heavy for a zoom. If I pull that sucker out, people are going to be looking to see what movie I'm shooting if I'm out traveling with that thing. But it's fast. I'll be able to do low light with it and everything, but it's massive, right? With this guy, I know there's limitations, and that's where you have to start thinking about when you do take a setup like a camera with a zoom traveling, understand your limitations so that you know what you need to do when you get out there. Like, I'm not gonna be out at night shooting this unless I know I have a lot of ambient light around me, storefront light, store signs light, light coming from buildings. I'm gonna use that light to my advantage to make sure I get some decent or pretty good or excellent shots with this setup. When light's not an issue, this shines way more than the zoom. And generally, again, as I was about to say, when you're out traveling, hopefully you got great weather, great light, which I had in Montreal, and you get some really good images. But again, I wanted to try just only traveling with 2 cameras in Montreal. I took my M6 for the film, because as you guys know, I'm doing mostly more film this month of August than I am doing digital, and it's coming along nicely. So I should hopefully have a lot of different content on the YouTube channel in the coming weeks about my experiences with the film and different films I shot for the month of August. And again, looking forward to anybody who wants me to showcase their best film photo for this month as I start to regurgitate my experiences that I had in the month of September, excuse me. So what are you guys' thoughts on that? You know, if you take out or don't take out, let's ask, if you don't take a zoom lens with you, or if it's not part of your kit or setup when you do travel photography, why? What are your cons against that? If you do, what are your pros and cons against that? For those that shoot prime only, what are your pros? You know, how does this help? Now, granted, guys, this is all based on the type of photographer you are. Everybody's going to have different reasons for the type of gear that they take with them on travel. But I've found that for me, a zoom is the walk out the door, get everything you can get situation, where the limitations aren't as bad as I thought they were. A lot of it has to do, again, with how good the cameras have gotten these days, ISO sensitivity and things like that. The fact that you can take wonderful pictures at 12,800 ISO on the street, and the fact that you have software now that can recover a lot more information than we did 5 years ago. I'm not even going to say 10 years ago, 5 years ago, right? I can even get away with saying 2 years ago. Is a zoom lens more to your liking now than it was before? Let me know what you guys think in the comments when it comes to that, using a zoom lens for travel as part of your kit over a prime. And for those that say, no, you're crazy, tell me why. Tell me why you use a prime versus a zoom when it comes to travel. I'd love to hear you guys' comments. Hit me again on my Instagram, WarrenC01, or hit me in the comments of the YouTube video. Let me know what you guys' thoughts are on that. So with that, we're going to get to the last segment, the Q&A segment. And as always, if I don't get anything from the community, I will definitely ask a question myself for you guys to think about, get your juices flowing, and give you a perspective, at least my perspective, on the question at hand. And I would love to see what you guys' thoughts are in the comments when it comes to this section, like all sections. So the question for this episode, as I read my notes, is how do you get out of a creative rut? How do you get out of a creative rut? What do you do? I mean, to get you inspired, not what do you think people should do, not what do you know other people do. What do you do to get out of a creative rut? Best way I can answer that question is there are a number of things that I look to do to get out of a creative rut. And a creative rut for me is literally I have no motivation to go and do photography. I have no motivation to even want to do stuff for this YouTube channel and content. My brain has gone on a break, a creative break, and I didn't want it to. So what do I do to say to myself, hey, let's get out here and let's do this? Because in a lot of ways, like most things we do, it is a assist to our mental state, and me going out and taking images definitely helps to keep me grounded mentally. Just like running helps me to deal with stress, helps me to keep my health level at a certain point. I average 20,000 steps a day in Montreal, walking around. And everybody walks in Montreal. I've never seen so many people walking everywhere. I grew up in New York City, and I know people walk in New York City, believe me. But I don't think I've seen that many people out and about walking around as fast as they were walking in Montreal since I left New York City. I was impressed. But there are a lot of benefits to me being creative. There's a health benefit, there's a mental benefit, sometimes there's a financial benefit, especially if I'm doing work for pay, or producing work for paid clients. There's reasons, right, to help. But what do I do? I can honestly say that I first look to get inspired by others, which is why I have my nice little photo book collection going off here on the shelf to the right of me and to the shelf that's in front of me in my home office / YouTube studio. That's why I have books like I have here from Ken West, and I go through them to just see what they did and to see how I can maybe go and do what they did. And in a lot of cases, like Ken West's book, it motivates and inspires me to look at what they do and what I do, and maybe improving on something I'm doing that I see that they do very well in their images. So I will also check out Instagram and look at the people I follow on Instagram, the photographers, the creators, and get some inspiration there. I'll talk to my wife, just because she's a photographer, and see what she's been up to and what things she's doing, because we're two different types of photographers, and that's a positive. We don't go after the same stuff, and I love to see her work and see what she's doing. She's not as sociable as I am as far as social media and posting images and things, but I know I can go to her and talk to her about photography and get some motivation and inspiration. So that's one. The other thing I will do is I will partake in group events. That's something I do. Actually, my wife does as well. We are sociable people. People in general, are sociable. We interact. That's part of our psyche, to interact with others, to interact. And I find that being a part of a group event or being a part of a photo group does help in keeping me inspired and motivated to create. One of the groups that I used to do a lot of stuff with before the group ended was Drink and Click in Ann Arbor. It gave me an opportunity to get out once or twice a month to do something with the group, or do something so that I can participate with the group. Whether what the theme was for the month, and get images based on that, so I could submit and be able to just have fun going out and doing street photography with the group. And then if somebody in our group actually happened to place in first place or second or third place for the theme, we celebrated that too. And that was a lot of fun. I actually missed that. But I do look to get inspired by doing group events, whether that's at my local store when they have events, especially when they have events that are photo walks, where I'll go out and do the walk with folks and meet new folks and get their experiences and see what cameras they're using and how they do their photography and so forth. It can be very inspirational, and it'll definitely give, I think, most people boost to their creative juices and ideas. And then the last thing I do as I look at my notes is, and it's funny because my wife, she knows me, I haven't used it yet. Thankfully, I haven't gotten to a point where I had to use it yet. but I will do challenges, and I will limit myself, restrict myself as well, which I consider as a challenge. And I actually, my wife got me this. You know, she's great when it comes to Christmas and doing the stocking stuffers. You know, we say she's she's the greatest Christmas stocking gifter in the world, because you know, I don't know where she sometimes gets some of these thoughts and ideas to put in the stockings, but she definitely knows her husband and her children, because we are always amazed at what she throws in there for a couple of dollars as far as little gifts. And one of them, though, was the street photography challenge. This guy right here. And this is cards that have tips, tricks, and ideas to rejuvenate your photography. When I first saw the book, or saw the box, I should say, and saw what it was, I was overjoyed. I was like, my wife done did it again. This thing is phenomenal in the sense that it does have ideas in it that can help rejuvenate my creative juices if I happen to get into a rut. Now, I said a few seconds ago, thankfully I haven't had to use it, and I haven't. I've used inspiration from others. I've done group things to help keep me going. I'm a pretty lively person, as you could probably tell, and don't need a whole lot of inspiration to get in trouble. So I will use this as I need to help keep me inspired. This is my, what they call it, fail safe right here. This is my fail safe. I opened this up the first time because you guys saw, if you're watching the YouTube video, I had it open, and I have it on my desk, and I haven't even taken the cards out of the wrapper yet, because I took them out one time, went through them all, saw a lot of the stuff on here I already do to keep me motivated, and then put it back in there as my fail-safe, if you will, if all else fails, meaning the two other things, events with folks and inspiration through others. And as you flip through the cards, I think it is phenomenal what he has on here. Photograph patterns in a whitewashed window. I've actually done that without even looking at this. And then it says, think like a curator, right? And building and shop windows are often whitewashed to hide interiors from view while renovations are taking place. And it goes about describing what the task is, right, on here. And then what it'll do is it will show an example of what it wants you to look into and take pictures of to see what you can do. I think this is a phenomenal product. And I'm talking about it not because I'm sponsored by this person, not at all. It's because I like it. And I've gone through it once or twice to see what I'm supposed to do. And when I saw that I did a number of things, I said, you know what? I'm gonna keep this on my desk in case I really truly am in dire need of inspiration. And we're gonna put this right back here where it was and have that close to go through. So what do you guys do when you're in creative rut? Those are my three things that I do. You know, I look for inspiration in others again. I look to do group events, and then I look to do the challenge here, or challenge myself in ways with limitations or restrictions. What do you guys do? Let me know in the comments. Let me know what you guys think. So that is the cast for this episode. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the topics. Hopefully you guys will give me some feedback and let me know in the comments about each segment that you want and what your thoughts are. Let me know, for those out there, if you also want to rep a street photographer, let me know in the comments. I'll do that research, get that information, and let me know why you want to rep them, and I'll make sure I bring that up in the next episode. So with that, I will see you guys in the next cast.